Hi everyone, this is Dave Mathews, Personal Navigation. This is the start of a weekly slot I'm going to be doing to try and help everybody to navigate the person, use the person, the legal person. Been involved, just a bit about background about myself. I've been involved in this sort of law movement, stroke free men on the land for around 4 years. Tested loads and loads of methods, etc. Just playing about with the sort of magistrates court system, seeing what works, what doesn't work. We've been having a lot of success using sort of Dean Clifford's methods mainly. Just understanding what the legal person is, and there's still mass confusion, and people are still very, very frightened of the legal person, and you hear people going into court and saying, I'm not the legal person, or, just making silly arguments really and trying to claim common law jurisdiction and a few things like that. There has been the odd success, but basically I'm going to try and teach you in more of a way where you'll get success every time you go into the courtroom. So that's basically what I'm going to be covering. What I would like very much, though, if I talk for sort of the first half an hour, explain some points and capacities of the person, etc., some of the courtroom procedure stuff. What I'd like very much then is if people could, call in, ask questions, if there's anything you're not sure of, or if you've been, in the court system and you've tried maybe writing to them and the letters have failed and all of these kind of things. If you've been in the court and tried arguments and they failed, maybe I can help explain why they failed, and the next time you go in there, maybe we can sort of learn from the mistakes that you made in the courtroom. So just a quick bit of background into how you became the legal person that you are. And there are a lot of sort of different variants of this, but basically when you're born, you have a mother and father. You're born in a hospital for the most part. Then a long form birth certificate, which is what it's called in this country, is created. It has the hospital, the doctor's name on it, the mother and the father, and it's got a lot of information on that long form birth certificate, and that's an A4 size piece of paper. And at that sort of time, there aren't any problems, which you wouldn't expect. But what they then do is your mother usually goes off to register the birth. She does so, and what comes out in the post for you then, albeit you're unaware at that time, is a short form birth certificate. Without going into too much detail, the short form birth certificate is kind of like a death certificate. That's what it's been called by the likes of Winston Shrout and people like that. But in any event, the short form birth certificate is a title. That title then really shouldn't be used. It's a title. Your given name, for example, my given name was Dave Mathews, but the short form birth certificate is a title. So if, for example, you then go off and apply for a driving license or a passport or anything, any government paperwork where you produce this identification, being the short form birth certificate, that identifies you as an employee or similar of the Crown or the government. So you've used that identification to obtain more government identification. I'm not going to go into too much more detail on that at this stage in the game, and I just want to explain a little bit about what the Crown is and who Her Majesty is, and I'm not sure whether people will know that sort of information, but the Her Majesty, which is Her Majesty's Courts and Tribunal Services, Her Majesty's Customs and Excise, Her Majesty's Inland Revenue, all of that stuff. Her Majesty is actually Her Majesty in Right of England, for the most part, which is the Crown Corporation or the Corporation of London. So it's Her Majesty and Right of England Corporation of London. There is another Her Majesty, which is all caps Her Majesty, which is a US corporation. So we've all been led to believe, and I was led to believe that Her Majesty, anything that says Her Majesty in some way represented or was, the Queen, but it's actually the corporation. And then, Dean Clifford teaches people that, you're only a corporate agent or an agent of the government if you're using their paperwork. So if you get pulled over and you've got a driving license, the first thing the police do is they work on the presumption that you've got government identification on your car, which is a number plate. You've got a government-issued tax disc. You've got a government-issued driving license, and they ask you to, produce your driving license, produce your insurance, and from that moment in time, if they're intending to prosecute you for anything, or you don't, produce your documents, because a lot of the time we don't have those documents on us, they're working on the presumption that we are agents of government. So if you run along and produce your documents and there's something not in order, they can basically do what they like. They'll get you in a magistrate's court. You're only going in there just to discuss how much money you're going to be paying them. For the most part, they'll just grease you up and shaft you, and that's what I'm trying to teach people to get out of. And you'll have to bear with me because I'm new to this. I'm sort of only just coming to the public. Then, another thing with the driving stuff is that in insurance, you actually declare that you're performing a public function of some kind right in the insurance policy, which is another presumption then that they use in court. So I'll give you like a scenario. You're pulled over, you don't have an MOT. No, perhaps a better scenario. You go through a speed camera and they write to you and they ask you who was driving at the time of the complaint, and you have to fill in the form in all capitals, and that's quite obviously corporation paperwork. And I tested this in a reverse sort of method whereby I've written a letter to them. I went through a stage where I was going through speed cameras, not excessive speed, but just fast enough to get a flash, and I'd write a long letter saying, my name is Dave Mathews. I was in this vehicle at the time of the complaint. Quite blatant. That's the first thing on the letter. I was in this vehicle at the time of the complaint. However, although I have a UK driving license, I was not using it at the time of the complaint. And the whole thing the whole process takes about 6 months, and you write back and forth, and, the idiot on the other end that just keeps writing to you, saying, we're going to take you to court, we're going to take you to court. Eventually they take you to court. So I did a couple that, I just let them then take me to court, and I didn't show up. Although I did place on the court file the copy of the letter that I'd written, the first letter, the first paragraph. It says right in there, I'm Dave Mathews, and I was driving the vehicle at the time of the complaint. So right there, I tell them who it was. And this is a prime example of how stupid the system is. So they have their court case, their stupid magistrate, the three idiots get up on the bench, and they sort of write a letter a couple of days later. Yeah, we're going to do you for failing to provide details, and we're going to do you for the speeding. So it ends up like an 800 quid fine. So they've ignored the fact that they asked, just because I didn't fill in the actual paperwork with all capitals, which would have given me, written away all my rights and what have you. And although I told them in the first paragraph that I was, behind the wheel at the time of the complaint, they still did me for failing to provide details. So that's an example of the written process then, if you like. What we're finding is, from a success point of view, court successes, what we're finding best off now is going into the court and just dealing with it in the spoken word. Literally, don't file any paperwork. Don't even bother with it. Just learn who you are, learn what the person is, and learn how to use it. So it brings us on to the person, and it's all about sort of capacity. what capacity you get to court in, what capacity you were, you know, all the way through your day, you're acting in slightly different capacities, and you know, so when you turn up in court, the way the magistrates work over here is that you go, what I'd like is a few of you people to go in and actually sit for a day in a magistrate's court, where they're hearing traffic cases or something similar. They'll always, the guy walks in, you know, the poor sod who's going to get greased up walks in, and he stands there, and name, and he goes, Mr. Yada, 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 date of birth, and he goes, blah, 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 blah. And then they tell him, well, you're here to be greased up and fucked over today because you did this wrong and you did this wrong, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. Is that okay? And the poor sod will nod his head. So they just, you know, they're gonna fuck him over. So they basically have their little stupid discussion. Sometimes they'll go out into their little, you know, cup of tea room and have a cup of tea. They come back in, they make it look all very scary, you know, and they're up on their stupid bench, and you know, they haven't got a clue what's going on. The clerk knows what's going on, but she's the only legal representative in the room. They come back in, Mr. Yada, 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 we find that, you know, you are guilty of these offences, and we're going to punish you by way of a fine. Do you understand? And this guy who's now become a zombie will probably nod his head, you know, and just totally agree with everything they're doing. Walks out, gets told by the fines officer that, you know, he's got to pay 800 quid, it's payable now, and, you know, you can sort of pay a bit at a time, but you do risk the bailiffs coming round and blah, blah, blah. So that's pretty much how the system is working on a daily basis, day in, day out, in whatever area you live. And I would, if you're trying to get into this or you're trying to learn about this stuff, I urge you to just go and sit. Because I've done this for, you know, days and days and days and days. Just go in, sit at the back of the courtroom, and just watch what goes on. And the guy who's getting done, or the girl that's getting done, or the lady or the man or the woman, they never, ever, ever speak other than to confirm their name. They don't say anything, and they just get shafted. So it's what you want to be doing is, when you go into the courtroom with the legal person, you don't want to be making the argument, I'm not the legal person. You want to get right down as soon as you walk in there. You know, if you're not sure about your rights, if you walk into the dock and such like, just ask them right out. Just say, are my inherent rights protected by entering this room? And they will say yes. You know, they'll say, yeah, you're right. You know, because they're trying to pretend that, you know, this is a fair system. They're trying to pretend that what's going on is fair and just and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, the clerk will then ask you, you've got, for those of you who don't sort of know much about the court, some will be well versed in what it is, but you've got your three magistrates for the most part on the bench, and then you've got the clerk, and then you've got an usher usually, and then whatever parasitic lawyers are sitting on the various benches discussing what they're going to do with each other, but you can just ignore them. But anyway, you want to be saying, well, you know, they'll keep asking you, are you Mr. So-and-so? Are you Mr. So-and-so, date of birth? And you want to say right there and then, you know, hi, yeah, I'm Dave. I'm here to deal with that matter. And I'm making a special appearance. I'm here by way of a special appearance. And I'm not prepared to waive any deficiencies in your case. And the reason that you make special appearance, I think they call it propria persona as well, but the reason you make special appearance is because by making a special appearance, you do not admit to jurisdiction. So you're not there arguing with them about jurisdiction. They know right there and then special appearance questions jurisdiction. When people go in and admit to being Mr. David Mathews, date of birth, blah, 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 they make that's a general appearance. And what I always like to add when I make a special appearance, because when you make a general appearance, you actually waive all of the deficiencies in their case. So right from that point, once you've made a general appearance, you've just admitted jurisdiction, and, you know, it's the same as employing a lawyer. As soon as you employ a lawyer, you throw away all your rights. You don't question any of the deficiencies, and you give them jurisdiction. So special appearance questions that from the get-go. You don't admit jurisdiction. Once you've got out there, I always like to say I'm a non-resident of the UK, and I'm here in the capacity of a private individual, because if you don't make it clear, resident we have all probably been taught that the word resident means that, we live in the United Kingdom, but resident actually means you hold office. It's one of the sort of trick words that they use. So if you let them know that you're a non-resident of the UK, they know right off the bat what you're on about. And for the most part, that is enough. But you will get, clerks and some of the magistrates, very rarely, because the magistrates are usually useless, but some of the clerks will sort of question you a little bit. Just, you can't just go in and sort of use these words and hope that it's like a magic phrase or a magic sentence, because they will push you and they will try and trick you and get jurisdiction over you, and they'll go right back to, well, are you so and so, and you can just keep saying, no, I'm Dave, I'm here to deal with this matter, I'm here to deal with this matter, I'm here in this capacity. So because if you don't tell them what capacity you're in, if you don't tell them you're making a special appearance and question jurisdiction, they will presume that you are there as an agent of government, because they have sent you a letter which identifies your name in all capital letters, which is a corporate identification. They're calling the officer of the corporation. You hold office. You're there because you broke one of their shitty tribunal. You're in their shitty tribunal to discuss the fact that you've just broken one of their stupid laws. If they push you on it, you've got to learn how to operate within the person. You can start doing clever things like claiming all the equity in the court file and such like when you get into it a bit more. But for the most part, if they continue to push you, you can then be the authorized representative of the name. So it just reaffirms who you are, what you're there as, because they will try and they'll try and administrate on your behalf. This usually is enough to shut down, and it certainly has been enough to shut down any of the cases that we've seen where it's just been, you've been in there and used the sort of spoken word to fight these things. You can once you start sort of getting familiar with it and you're starting to enjoy it, you can start sort of toying with them a little bit if you want to, and that's always fun. You can start asking them questions about facts and evidence and, like the Mark Stevens type methods. Have you got any witnesses with personal first-hand knowledge? And I've been, waving around the police statements. I don't know if anybody's sort of familiar with the exclusion rule on the witness statements of the police. They sort of draw a box around the bit where they say that, this is the truth and I'm a police officer and blah, 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 blah. And they just draw a box around it which excludes it from the document. So he could write pretty much anything in that box and it wouldn't mean jack shit. So, pardon my French, by the way. So the person then really is not to be feared. It's the most powerful thing, that you've got. The person is, if you can imagine, you couldn't go in and get a bank account. If you wanted a bank account, the human or the, divine or whatever you want to, whatever, I don't know, people call it loads of different things. You need a legal person to get a bank account. You need a legal person to, operate in the world of commerce. But it doesn't mean that by being, the legal person is part of you, but the legal person isn't all of you. The legal person is your, if you're a house builder, the legal person is it's your saw, it's your hammer, it's your nail, it's your plane, it's your sandpaper. The legal person is no more than a tool in the world of commerce, in the world of, the government world, that they've created. So, we're hearing of people now that are just running away. I'm not the legal person, and I'm not, I'm refusing the right to be recognized as a person. And if you can live totally outside the system, as some people do successfully, then that's fair enough. But once you learn to use the person to your advantage, then you can really, really empower yourself. So I'm really, really keen to help people get to grips with it, and teach you how to use it as a tool. So I don't know if there's any questions so far that anybody wants to come in with or anything. Can't see anybody waiting there.
I put a few. I don't know how long my audio will.
Yeah, that's okay.
Will last here, unfortunately. It may be all right, but when it goes up, well, my audio should be all right, but my screens will go off and then I can't see any. But there you go. I have now got black screens. Yeah, I'm listening. I'm soaking it all in. I'm not involved in any criminal court cases. I'm perplexed. I mentioned to you this before about what I should do regarding my outstanding mortgage.
Yeah.
And certain things that have happened regarding that.
Yeah, I mean that is I should have thought of it before, but that's a great example. There you were saying, because your wife she was executor for you, wasn't she? Was your wife executor, or did she have power of attorney?
Yes, I'm not sure which one it actually was. It was one or the other. When the mortgage was took out, I was exempt under the Mental Health Act because of the medication I was on. I always like to say because of the medication, because when you say that, people think you're nuts. Well, I might be a little nuts, but you know, it was because when I was under that much medication, I couldn't think straight. And I kind of see that's why it's there.
Yeah, oh yeah. I agree with that. But, I mean, it gives a great example of what government have done to all of us, because you may well have consented to your wife having power of attorney or being the, administrator for you on your behalf, but government have actually done this to us without our knowledge. So you could say that, the birth certificate was issued with malicious intent. And stuff. They actually administrate on a daily basis on our behalves without our consent, although they trick us into giving consent. So I think it's a really good way of getting people to understand how they're sort of tricking us. So the consent, they have to govern, and they have to have these court cases, and they have to do everything by consent. That make no mistake about that. As soon as they know you don't consent and you start, questioning jurisdiction properly, they will back off because they're now harming you. And with using that sort of example is brilliant. And all the listeners, whatever listeners there, just bear with me a bit, because obviously I'm a bit new to talking into the microphone. Sort of, I've been behind the scenes for a lot of years, and I got a bit fired up recently, and I'm sort of. That's why I'm here now, trying to come into the public. I'm happy for people to sort of contact me and email me and ask questions on here. That's what I'm here for. I want people to ask questions. I want people to give me examples of problems, and what people have to get leveled out as well. I hear people say, there's, for an example, just because you hear of it in the news all the time. Somebody who's growing rooms full of cannabis, and you might be trying to help these people, and they're like, oh no, but this is really serious. It's not any statutory law. It doesn't matter what it is, how they dress it up, how serious it is. Yeah, it's serious in their world. It's serious if you're an agent of the government or you're an employee of the Crown. But it's puke. That's all it is. It's crap. And it's crap that they just make up to make money from you. It does, as long as you know how to handle yourself in court and what the legal person is and how powerful the legal person is, it doesn't matter if you've got, 10 acres of cannabis growing, and, it doesn't make any difference at all. Any statute, any act can only apply to government. And I've got, a law book, like I said before, written by a professor from Oxford, and it says right in there, the Crown only have legal power in the capacity of employer. It says it right in there, and Dean Clifford has sort of, been teaching this sort of method and trying to get this through people's heads for years and years and years, and that's why I want to try and get people into the fact that don't be afraid of the person. Don't be afraid of it. The person's like your building tools, or the person's like a car. You don't get in a car and start driving it without knowing how to use it, because you're just going to fuck it up, crash it into a tree, crash it into a wall, and then you're going to be cussing about the car. Well, it's not the car's fault. It's your car for trying to drive it when you didn't know how to drive it. You know, it's a very, very easy thing to use. The legal person is an easy thing to use, but you've just got to know how to use it. So, but yeah, so carry on, yeah.
Well, I heard your offer then. I mean, you can gladly, you can gladly get on and have a go with me, Dave, with my mortgage company. That should be quite good fun, actually, because like I say, I haven't done anything yet. I've also got a case where my house was raided by Greater Manchester Police.
Yeah.
Where I was, well, I wasn't even in the country.
Yeah,
There was somebody else occupying the building at that time, and then they arrested me, hounded me for 3 months, and then eventually I went to the police station where they imprisoned me for a day, basically, and then let me go. And 14 days later, they brought no charges.
Yeah.
At all. So that's something I've got to deal with as well. I haven't actually dealt with yet. I have had complaints against the police in the past through the normal procedure, and I've had them upheld. Yeah. The solicitor I spoke to regarding the raid on the house said it was a vindictive attack.
Yeah.
And they stood by that with the police.
Wow.
The solicitors, they stood by it. So... but yeah, the mortgage, going back to the mortgage one, I'm happy for them things to be public. I have nothing to fear, you know.
Yeah.
But the mortgage one, I think we'll need to make a couple of phone calls and get in touch with them.
Yeah.
Where I'm at with it is, I contacted my mortgage company after my statement arrived with my ex-wife's new married name on it. Right. So I'm divorced. I got the property, I'm paying for the mortgage, that was supposed to be the end of it.
Yeah.
My responsibility now. Like yourself, I'm taking responsibility for my person. I haven't been responsible. Now I've realised I can be responsible. I thought I'd have a go, you know.
Yeah, definitely. So just on that then, did, you know, you say you're divorced, did you get rid of the power of attorney that she had?
Yes.
So that was all taken away from her. So she's no longer.
Yes, it went from her then to my daughter because they coerced between themselves and led me to believe that I must have a carer or somebody basically where my finances were going to. And it was my friend Nigel Rawlins, the ex-councillor who's now active in our Ashton allotment action and in the Green Party, who actually stepped in as my temporary, you know, with the powers of attorney over me, my executor, temporary.
Yeah.
And while he was temporary executor, he used his powers to say that I was now capable of doing it myself.
Right. Okay.
That's how we got out of it.
Yeah.
Because you need some. You know what I mean? I couldn't take that back because I've been exempt. And the weird thing is they've accepted that, but really it should be a doctor who actually says that I'm no longer exempt. So I've kind of took that power back myself, which has worked.
Well, that's good.
So yeah, what actually happened was I got that. That's why I was like, why has this happened? And I rang them up and I explained to them. Now on that mortgage it said Mr. Paul Hayden, myself, and Mrs. Beep Beep. Now they changed the name. I don't want to mention her name. You know, that's her affair now.
Yeah.
So I rang them up and I said, well, why? How has this name come onto this document I've got?
To start with, though, the mortgage was in prior to her.
It was in Mr. and Mrs. It was the name was Paul Hayden and Mrs. Hayden. Yeah, that's what the name was in that order. I rung them up because my statement had come with Mr. Paul Hayden, which I've been told is the principal debtor, the one with the first name. Yeah. Which it was myself, and I told them, and they said
that makes sense actually, because your Mr. was left off in your first one.
Yes.
It was just Paul Hayden and Mrs.
I know, it was Mr. Excuse me, that's my error. It was Mr. Paul Hayden and Mrs. Paul.
All right.
On both.
Yeah.
Now, I rang them up and I said to them, look, why has this happened? And blah, blah, blah. No, we can do that because this is it and that's that. And it was rubbish. I just knew it was rubbish. But they changed this name because my ex-wife had actually been in touch with them.
Yeah.
For what reasons, again, no idea. It's nothing to do with her anymore. Nothing at all.
Well, But it sounds like she's administrating without permission.
Well, either way, when I rang them up and I told them about this, they told me on the phone that if that was the case and I was exempt, then I was missold the mortgage. That's what I was told. So I rung my local branch, and they made it a complaint. I was making an inquiry, they turned it into a complaint.
Yeah.
I went onto my internet banking next, and I looked on my mortgage, and the name's been changed now, and it still stands like this. There's now Mrs. and a new married name as the principal debtor, and I've been placed as the second debtor. Okay, they've actually changed that when I've informed. So I've rung them up to ask for an inquiry.
And the property, where's the property is your property?
I'm in it, yes. But she's now been made the principal debtor of the mortgage. As they realise...
I just sent her a thank you letter.
Well, I'm paying it. This is the irony. I'm paying this mortgage, and I've been on to them, and they said, if that was the case, then I would be exempt. I asked them to send me the documentation. They said there was no notification, there was no notes about this on the documentation. They've sent me the documentation, and on that it says comments. And under comments it said both payments made to Mrs. You see?
Yeah.
No payments were being made to me because financially I was exempt. The money I was receiving at the time wasn't paid to me.
Yeah.
It was paid to my ex-wife for me, because I wasn't legally responsible.
Yeah, yeah.
Now they're holding me legally responsible for a debt that I wasn't responsible when it was originally took out. The original paperwork, is wrong. It should have read at a very minimum, and now I don't know about this, Dave, but as I get it, it should have been read as a minimum, Mrs. blah, 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 and Mr. the second way around. Well, it shouldn't have even said Mr. It would have been Paul.
So she's still the principal debtor on the second, when she should have been the principal debtor, and she's not.
Yeah, but as I get it, because it was done wrong, and it says on it, and they've done it wrong, and the note is actually on the form.
Yeah.
Then that it was missold.
Yeah, it sounds very much like it's missold. The only argument they could make if they came to court, from what I can see, is because you've made two payments, the judge may judge that you've agreed or you've entered into an agreement. They sometimes use that, where people have made arguments where mortgage companies have changed hands, say, Santander or whatever Santander, they buy Halifax, whatever, I can't even remember who was who, but if at the point that they swapped or they were bought out by somebody, you stopped from that point because you didn't agree with what was going on, you would have almost certainly beaten them in court, because the agreement was null and void, because they breached the agreement. But if you, which is what happened with most people, just carried on paying, all of the cases I've seen with mortgages, the judges made the determination that because you paid it, you therefore agreed, because in their sort of will, silence is consent or whatever. You didn't protest it before you started paying. You could go in and say, this has just been brought to your attention. They need to correct a mistake, and that these payments have been made in error, and they've missold the mortgage. I think that would be a good argument, but without I would need to see the paperwork in front of me so I could read it and digest it a bit better, so I can get a full sort of picture, if you like. I'm making notes here as I go, but I'd be very interested to get involved in that.
Well, yeah, welcome. You're actually welcome. I can't actually see any of my screens at the moment, so I just wanted to let the other people know in the chat I can't actually see what's... Yeah,
I can't see if anybody's waiting to speak or anything.
Right, well, I did see before my screens went black. I do think Jabba's there. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, cheers, man. If somebody could actually speak up and tell us what's going on in text, because my screens are all black.
If anybody wants to speak, pass away.
Yes. Hi, Dave.
Hiya, how are you?
Thanks for being on Darkcity Radio.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I just have a a little question. I didn't knew that it was a show like that on the Darkcity Strawman show. Yeah. It's very good. I just have one little question that come to my mind is, when you talk about the people in the court and stuff, do they know what is really going on?
Yes, for the most part. There may be the odd one that doesn't, but for the most part, the clerk does know what's going on. If they try and do the thing where they look at you stupid and try and tell you that you're crazy and they haven't got a clue what you're on about, just turn around and say, well, I suggest that you sort of recuse yourself and get somebody that does know what I'm on about. But again, it's something that you need to sort of be pretty familiar with, learn how to use it properly, because they will try these sort of tricks. They've got coercive powers, and that in all of the administrative law books that I've that I've read rather, it says in there that they do have coercive powers. So they can try and trick you into assuming the capacity of one of their officers, which is the only thing that they can act upon. So what I think you've got to sort of get, what people have got to get into their head, and there is case law to support this. It's like R versus Dell, 2001. R versus Big M Drug Mart, I think, is another one. R versus Chicago Motor Coach, that's another one. That the acts and statutes do only apply to government. There's case law out there, but you don't want to really start bringing case law into a case, because case law is case relevant. But when they use it, they don't let you know it's case relevant. They just say, oh, well, there's case law to support this, blah, 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 and you want to be saying, well, I don't really care about case law because it's case relevant, sort of turn it round on them. But you've got to get into your head that what's a magistrate's court case is, and there's an even lower form of a magistrate's court, which is the council tax court, but the magistrate's courtroom is nothing more than an internal tribunal for the government, for the Crown, the Crown Corporation. That is all it is. It's no different to Coca-Cola or, John Lewis. If you worked for John Lewis and you broke one of John Lewis's, they must have like a list of rules and regulations. And if you break one of those when you're on duty at John Lewis, you're going to get hauled over the coals. You're going to be in the tribunal. They're going to be like, well, what we've decided to do to you is blah, 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 blah. Well, that's fair enough. But if you work for John Lewis and you're not on duty and you break one of their regulations, can they come at you then? If you get what I mean, can they attack you? Can they start coming after you? You broke one of the regulations. You broke a John Lewis regulation, and you weren't on duty at that time when you broke that code. Can they do anything?
They can't.
No, and it's exactly the same. But what government are doing and what the Crown are doing, Her Majesty's Courts and Tribunal Service, what they're doing is they are tricking you into admitting to be on duty, or they're presuming that you're on duty. So
yeah, but it is not a little bit like the policeman who exactly know how he can in a way trick you, but in a way he is blinded to just use the tools they give it to him that he can make.
Absolutely. I mean, with what I try and sort of tell people is you're never, for the most part, and I'm not saying this is across the board, and this might not be everybody else's opinion, but for the most part, with the police, they go and employ now the stupidest idiots that they can find who will just do stuff without question. They don't, they get given a book, a list of things that they go by, and they're not interested in the law. They're not remotely interested in the law. You start quoting, law to them, like you hear Dean Clifford's recording 12 minutes on the side of the road, and the guy in Canada, he didn't even know that there was a Canadian Bill of Rights. He was trying to tell Dean that, that it was a USA document. For the most part, the police don't just be as polite as you can to the police and just get away from them, because they are, for the most part, idiots. And they don't care about your arguments. They'll still take your car. They'll still do what they're going to do to you because they want to show you how much authority that they've got. And then, like I say, the best way to deal with it then is just to go in and deal with it in the magistrate's court, and you won't even be in there 3 minutes. That's how easy it is. It's not a complicated thing to do. It's not, you haven't got to learn codes and statutes and legalese and all of that crap. It's just a distraction. All you need to know is who you are, what the person is, and how to use it. And then once you do get an understanding of that, there's 1,000 different ways that you could, just walk straight out of that room scot-free, because their laws are irrelevant. They are absolutely irrelevant to you once you know who you are. So I hope that sort of helps. But ask away if you've got any more questions.
BJ have another question who is with me.